しくお願いします。まずはトランプとの出会い、どういう形でこう知り合ったんでしょうか。
Mr. McIntosh, can you tell us for the first time when you met Mr. Trump?
Yeah, I was about 10 years old, 11 years old, and he was 2 years older than me. And we met at a beach club, an Atlantic Beach Club on Long Island. And the beach club is a place that has small cabanas that people rent and spend this so they can spend the summer going to the beach. And in the group of cabanas that my family had, Donald Trump and his father and his family had another cabana just very close to me. So even though I'd seen him many times over 2 or 3 years, I only actually met him when his father and my father, who knew each other in business, decided that my father had decided that he would send me to military school. Donald had already been there for a year, and so Donald's father decided, or with my father's consent, decided that Donald should be my guardian at the military school, or at least my guide, to keep me out of trouble in the beginning, and then to make sure that, because I was a kid who didn't go to public school, I went to a private school in which all the kids learned to speak a little bit of French and German, and to knit and crochet and to make bread and to do all sorts of progressive school things. And I wasn't really going to be ready for military school.
会った当時の最初の頃の少年のトランプというのはどんな子供だったんでしょう。
So, what was he like when you first met? Like, yeah.
Well, he definitely was not like the Donald Trump that we know today from as president of the United States, or as the candidate Donald Trump. He was a tall, skinny kid who I would say had a real sense of himself. And I knew he was rumored to have been getting into trouble at school and with his friends running around. And but with me, he was just simply very down to earth and sort of plain spoken and polite. And this is how really he was the entire 5 years that we were together at the military school. In fact, I don't know anyone who thought of him as being impolite or bullying or anything, even though military school was really all about bullying, you know.
当時の彼にとってトランプさんにとっては父親というのはすごい大きい存在だったと思うんですけど、どんな父親の前でどんなトランプでした。
I believe that Mr. Fred Trump, which is Donald's father, was like really, you know, mentor, and he's probably a huge influence to the Mr. Trump. And then, how was Donald Trump in front of, how did he behave in front of his father?
The few times that I saw him with his father at the beach club, he even if his father was being very strict with him, giving him orders like that, he was always quiet. But I remember there was one time when he'd set up a tent on the beach that we used to go, and he would teach me how to play cards, and we would talk there and so forth. And I went to meet him at the tent, and it was about 30 feet from his cabana. And I could see his father was really telling him, you know, very strictly about something. And when Donald turned around and I could see him, I'd never seen his face like that. It was just contorted with anger. And he came over to me and he just started not yelling, but going at me with a very high whisper and telling me, listen to me, if you make any mistakes at this military school, they're really going to kill you. And he went into the detail about it. And I realized that after he went on for a while, he was really blowing off steam. That I think his father made him extremely angry. And yet he couldn't show it to his father. And so he showed it to whomever was in the vicinity. And unfortunately, this one day it happened to be me. But after he blew off the steam, after he had vented his anger, he put his hand on my shoulder and said, let's go and play some cards. So it was all over for him, you know. To me, I was stunned still, but I began to understand him in the future like this.
そうやってじゃあ今度学校に行った時のトランプっていうのはフレッドさんにはどういうふうに対応してたんですか
So after you entered New York Military Academy, how was Mr. Trump like? I mean, did he was he nice to you, or was he sort of?
Yes, he was as good as his promise to his father. He really did check up on me when we weren't together in the same group. He was in the middle school, meaning maybe 7th and 8th grade, 9th grade, when I was in the junior school. So we were in different buildings. But he would come and see me, or we would see each other walking, you know, on the roadways, and he would ask me how I was doing. So he was very, you know, he seemed to be, you know, concerned about me in a real way.
学校にいる時にこう構ってくれたであったり、よくしてくれたって何か具体的なエピソードは何か覚えてますか
So he is just say like he's looking after you, but is there anything that you could tell in an episode that he did actually take care of you?
Yes. In his first year, he was put into F Company, to Wright Hall. And that was run by a man named Theodore Tobias, an adult, who was the commandant. And the junior school and the middle school both had commandants who lived in the buildings with the boys, because they needed that kind of supervision. When you got older and you went to the upper school, there weren't adults living in the barracks, but in this case there were. So when he first was in Wright Hall, he had to experience Major Tobias. Major Tobias was extremely strict, and this was a man who had been at the school ultimately in his career 50 years and rarely ever left the school grounds. He'd gone to school there, he'd graduated from there, and the first job he had was back at the school as an adult taking care of people. So his view of the world was very narrow. And he either liked you and he rewarded you, or he didn't like you and he ignored you or punished you somehow like that. When Donald first came in, Donald was acting as a wise guy, apparently. Didn't make his bed, wasn't polite, and so forth. And so Tobias then just began to slap him around, as Donald said, punched him, right? Until Donald was shocked into, you know, he was either going to run away or he was going to stay there and take his orders. So, I forgot your question.
Yeah. So you told us that he took care of you. And
Yes.
Is there any
Yes.
episode?
Yes.
You can
So
tell us.
the year after he left, he'd been in Wright Hall with Major Tobias for 2 years. And after that, I came in and was with Major Tobias and had my own problems with him. And because I was one of the kids who Tobias didn't particularly like, he had every afternoon for a while, he would set up a boxing ring in the lobby of the building. And he would take a taller kid or a larger kid and have him box a younger kid, a smaller kid. But he would always have been teaching the younger kids how to box, and the older kids would never really know how to box. So I was paired with this little guy who had been taught how to box, and I never had boxed in my life. On the other hand, I had played judo. I had learned judo when I was younger, And Tobias knew that, and he said when he